Before there was sound, there was vibration. Before there was truth, there was silence. And before there was chaos, there was light. The light of Apollo. Born from divine pain and pursued by jealousy, Apollo emerged not only as the god of the sun, but of music, prophecy, healing, and reason. To the Greeks, he was more than a deity. He was the embodiment of harmony, the bridge between divine order and human emotion. He slayed monsters, inspired poets, guided kings, and punished arrogance. He was beauty and discipline, intellect and passion, the golden balance that held the universe in tune. But behind the radiance lies tragedy. For every song he played, there was sorrow. For every prophecy, a shadow. Apollo's light was never gentle. It was the light that burns, the truth that reveals, the perfection that condemns. This is the story of Apollo, god of light and prophecy. Long before temples were raised and hymns were sung, there was a woman wandering alone through the shadows of exile. Her name was Leto. Hunted by jealousy, cursed by Hera, forbidden to rest upon any land that saw the light of day, she wandered the world carrying within her the twin children of Zeus, Apollo and Artemis. The gods watched in silence. The earth turned its face away. And yet, in the endless sea, there drifted a small island. Delos, a fragment of the world unanchored, neither land nor sea, belonging to no one. It was there, under the gaze of stars, that Leto fell to her knees and gave birth to light. Artemis came first, calm, silver, born beneath the cool veil of the moon. Then came her twin Apollo, radiant, golden, his first cry splitting the darkness like dawn breaking over the horizon. The winds stilled, the waves bowed, and the island anchored itself to the sea, as if the cosmos itself acknowledged the birth of balance. He was no mere child of thunder like his father Zeus, nor the tempest of passion like Poseidon. Apollo was the embodiment of harmony, the union of clarity and creation, beauty and order. Where his sister walked with silence, he walked with sound, the rhythm of the universe given voice. As he grew, he was taught not in temples or by priests, but by nature itself. The winds whispered melodies through the mountains. The waves drummed the rhythm of time. He heard the world before anyone else could understand it. In every heartbeat he sensed a pattern, in every shadow a symmetry. And so he crafted his first song, not from wood or metal, but from the breath of creation. And from it, the gods themselves listened. Hermes, the trickster, was so moved that he offered Apollo his own invention, the lyre, the sacred instrument of balance. When Apollo touched its strings, the world trembled in recognition. His music did not praise, it revealed. It did not seek worship, it sought truth. For Apollo's melody was not sound, it was the alignment of existence, the sound of thought itself taking shape in light. Yet even as the god of harmony was born, the seeds of conflict were sown. Because wherever light emerges, shadow follows. Zeus looked upon his radiant sun and saw perfection. Hera looked and saw another betrayal. And in the silence between them, destiny began to move. Apollo's light would not remain pure forever. The same perfection that made him divine would also make him tragic. He would grow to see all, the beauty of truth and the pain it brings. For light is not mercy. It reveals all things, even the ones we wish to hide. But in these first moments, he was innocence itself, the god-child standing at the edge of the world, watching the horizon burn with morning fire. The poets say that as he took his first step, the earth bloomed. Where his gaze fell, shadows retreated. And as his laughter echoed across the newborn sea, the sun itself rose to follow him. Delos became sacred, a sanctuary not just of stone but of meaning, a reminder that even when cast into exile, life can give birth to brilliance, that light does not emerge from ease, but from struggle. For the son of Leto was born not upon Olympus, but upon an island no one claimed, proving that greatness is not inherited, it is found in defiance of darkness. To the Greeks, the story of Apollo's birth was more than myth. It was the metaphor of illumination. From chaos came order, from pain came beauty, from silence came song. And thus, Apollo became more than a god. He became a symbol of the mind's triumph over madness, of discipline over desire, of light over the long night of fear. Every dawn since that moment carries his memory. Every ray of sunlight is a whisper from Delos, a reminder that no matter how vast the night, light always finds a place to be born. The sun had risen, but the world was still half asleep, trapped between the memory of chaos and the promise of order. Even as Apollo's light spread across the heavens, there was one place it could not reach: a deep, haunted valley where the Python, a serpent born of the earth's primal darkness, coiled around a cave near Delphi. It was said that the creature was ancient, older than the Olympians themselves. It crawled from the remains of Gaia's wrath, from the damp soil of prophecy and decay. Its breath was poison, its gaze disease. It guarded the navel of the world, the omphalos, the center where all lines of fate converged, and in its pit truth slept beneath fear. Apollo, still young but already radiant, descended toward that valley. The air thickened, the light dimmed. Each step was heavy, as though the world itself tried to hold him back. He did not come for conquest, he came for cleansing. For light cannot claim to rule if it fears the dark. The people of the nearby lands whispered of the monster, of oracles who once spoke there, now silenced by its hissing. No one approached the cavern. None dared. But Apollo walked forward, unarmed except for his bow of silver and gold, crafted by Hephaestus and strung with the strings of his own lyre. He raised it not in rage, but in resolve. When Python stirred, the earth trembled. Its eyes glowed like molten stone. Its breath filled the valley with mist that stung like venom. But Apollo did not retreat. He drew his bow, and from the first string came not an arrow, but a note, a sound pure and bright, cutting through the fog. The serpent recoiled, not from pain, but from recognition, as if something in that melody reminded it of what it had lost when light first dawned upon the earth. Then came the second arrow, real, golden, blazing with sunlight. It pierced the air like the first ray of dawn through storm clouds. Python screamed, a sound like mountains breaking, rivers twisting, and the silence of ages shattering all at once. The battle was not chaos, but symphony. Each arrow sang. Each roar answered like a drumbeat of the world's rebirth. And when the final arrow found its mark, the serpent collapsed, its body folding into the mountain, its shadow sinking into the ground, buried beneath the very rock that would one day become the foundation of the Temple of Delphi. But Apollo did not celebrate. He stood over the fallen creature, and for the first time, he felt something strange: sorrow. For in killing Python, he had slain not just a monster, but the last echo of the old world. The darkness was terrifying, yes, but it was also ancient, eternal, a part of the balance that even gods could not fully destroy. He built his temple upon the ashes of that valley, not as a monument to conquest, but as a place of remembrance, a sanctuary where humankind could face their own shadows. The priests called it Delphi, the navel of the world. Here the voice of Apollo would speak, not in commands, but in riddles, through the mouth of the Pythia, the oracle who inhaled the sacred fumes from the serpent's tomb. Through her, Apollo would give mankind both guidance and confusion, both light and illusion. For even truth, when given too freely, becomes unbearable. So he spoke in symbols, in poetry, in ambiguity, because wisdom is not received, it must be earned. From that day, the serpent's death became legend. But to the philosophers who came centuries later, the myth meant more than the victory of a god. It was the victory of reason over instinct, clarity over chaos, knowledge over fear. Python was not merely an enemy, it was the darkness within every mind, the ignorance that hides beneath comfort. And Apollo's arrows were not weapons. They were insights, each one burning away a fragment of illusion. In Delphi, the world found its balance. Every prophecy, every voice that rose from the temple carried both hope and warning. The one who seeks truth must face their own shadow first. And so Apollo, slayer of Python, became not just a god of light, but a keeper of understanding. His light was no longer just the sun and the sky. It was the illumination of the human soul. For the Greeks, the tale of the Python was not about victory, but about transformation. The serpent's death gave birth to prophecy. The silence that followed gave birth to wisdom. And in the union of death and enlightenment, the world finally understood that the true enemy of gods and men alike is not darkness. It is the fear of seeing clearly. After the Python fell and the silence of Delphi settled into prophecy, Apollo found himself listening once more to the sound of the world. It was faint at first, the murmur of rivers, the hum of wind, the slow rhythm of the heart within all living things. To him, these were not noises. They were music, the language of order that held the universe together. For Apollo, music was not art, it was law. It was how the cosmos spoke to itself. Each tone had its place, each silence its meaning. The stars sang in frequencies beyond hearing, and the beating of mortal hearts was simply their echo. He carried his lyre, the instrument given to him by Hermes, not as a trophy, but as a compass, a reminder that beauty and discipline were one. When his fingers touched the strings, the world aligned. Mountains stilled, winds bent their course, even the sea paused as if to listen. The gods, it was said, gathered on Olympus not for feasts or quarrels, but to hear Apollo play. His melodies were not meant to please. They were meant to reveal, to make chaos remember its shape. To mortals, his music felt divine. To the gods, it felt like truth. And yet, even truth invites challenge. Far from Delphi, in the forests of Phrygia, there lived a satyr named Marsyas, half man, half goat, wild and free, a creature of the earth's laughter. He was no god, but he was gifted. He played the flute as though the wind itself answered him. One day, wandering through the woods, Marsyas found a strange instrument, a flute that had once belonged to Athena, who had abandoned it when she saw how it distorted her face as she played. Marsyas, unaware of its divine origin, lifted it to his lips, and the forest came alive. Birds sang back to him. The trees swayed to his rhythm. Even the river slowed to listen. Drunk on his own talent, Marsyas grew bold. He boasted that his music rivaled the lyre of Apollo. Perhaps, he said, even surpassed it. And in that boast, that single human spark of pride, he invited the wrath of perfection itself. Apollo appeared not in fury, but in serenity. The god of light stood among the trees, radiant yet calm, and said, "Play." And so they did. A contest between divine harmony and mortal passion. Apollo's lyre sang of the stars and the order of creation. Marsyas' flute cried with the heart of the earth, raw, untamed, full of feeling. The nymphs and satyrs watched, entranced as the two worlds clashed, discipline and freedom, heaven and earth. For a time, it seemed equal. Marsyas' notes burned with emotion, Apollo's shimmered with reason, but perfection cannot share its throne. Then Apollo, smiling faintly, said, "Let us play and sing, upside down." Marsyas hesitated. His flute was bound to breath. He could not. But Apollo, flawless, impossible, turned his lyre and played, still divine. The music rose, unbroken, radiant as the dawn. And in that moment, Marsyas understood, not his failure, but the distance between gods and men. When it ended, silence fell heavier than stone. Apollo approached, sadness in his eyes. "We're daring to challenge the divine," he whispered. "You will become the lesson." And so the myth says Apollo punished Marsyas, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. For harmony must have its dissonance, and arrogance its price. Marsyas was hung from a tree, and as his cries filled the air, the rivers turned red. But his voice, they say, became the first echo, the sound that reminds music of its own fragility. To the Greeks, this was not a tale of vengeance but of truth. Marsyas represented what was human: emotion, imperfection, the desperate urge to touch divinity. Apollo represented the divine ideal: pure, cold, perfect. Their contest was not between good and evil, but between freedom and order, between the chaos of life and the symmetry of eternity. Even Apollo grieved the outcome. He placed Marsyas' flute in the heavens, as if to say, emotion too deserves a place among the stars. And from that moment on, Apollo's music changed. It softened. It carried sorrow between the notes, an ache for something even perfection could never hold: the wild, flawed beauty of being mortal. He understood then that harmony without passion is silence, and that light without shadow is blindness. From that paradox, his art grew eternal. Even the brightest light casts a shadow. And for Apollo, god of the sun, music, and prophecy, love was that shadow. Beautiful, elusive, and cruel. For though he understood all the laws of harmony, he could never master the rhythm of the heart. They say that after conquering darkness, after building Delphi and tuning the world to order, Apollo grew proud, not in arrogance, but in certainty. He believed that nothing lay beyond his understanding. But the gods, even those of light, are bound to the same truth as mortals: the heart does not obey reason. The first to teach him that lesson was Daphne, a nymph of the forests, daughter of the river god Penis, and beloved of freedom itself. Her beauty was not fire, but wind, untouchable, ungraspable, always moving. Where she walked, the earth bloomed; where she fled, rivers sang. When Apollo first saw her, he did not see a woman. He saw perfection given form. Her movement was rhythm, her silence was music, and in that instant he forgot his own laws. He pursued her, not as a god pursuing prey, but as light chasing a reflection upon water, forever close, forever out of reach. But love born of obsession is no love at all, and Daphne, whose soul belonged to the wild, fled through the forest as Apollo called her name. "Wait," he cried, "I am no monster, no mortal. I am light itself." But the forest answered only with the echo of his desire. The faster he ran, the more she disappeared into shadow. When at last he reached her, breathless, desperate, she turned to the heavens and pleaded, "Father, let the earth save me from this god's love." And in an instant her body hardened, her skin turned to bark, her hair to leaves, her heartbeat into the whisper of the wind. Before him stood not a woman, but a laurel tree, its branches trembling where she had once breathed. Apollo froze. The light in his eyes dimmed. He touched the bark, warm but lifeless, and whispered, "If you will not be mine, then let this tree bear your name forever." He took its leaves and wove them into a crown, declaring that the laurel shall be the symbol of victory and remembrance, worn by poets and kings alike. Yet every time he placed the wreath upon his brow, it reminded him not of triumph, but of loss. The god of light had chased beauty and found stillness. He had sought love and found memory. But the lesson was not yet complete. Where Daphne had shown him the cruelty of unreturned love, another would show him the fragility of love returned: Hyacinthus, the mortal prince of Sparta. Unlike Daphne, Hyacinthus did not flee. He welcomed Apollo's company, his laughter, his music, his light. Together they hunted, raced the winds, and shared songs beneath the sun. The god, who had seen the rise and fall of empires, found in the boy something rare: simplicity, warmth, mortality. But even the purest joy carries a shadow. Zephyrus, the jealous west wind, watched their bond with envy, for he too loved Hyacinthus. And in one cruel twist of fate, jealousy struck where even gods are helpless. One afternoon, as they played discus beneath a golden sky, Apollo cast his disc high into the air. Hyacinthus ran to catch it, smiling, radiant, but the jealous wind changed its path. The discus struck his head, the boy fell, and time itself seemed to stop. Apollo knelt beside him, trembling. He pressed his hands to the wound, his lips to the fading pulse, whispering incantations that could move mountains, but not fate. For no light, not even his, can undo what destiny has chosen. As Hyacinthus's last breath escaped him, Apollo's tears fell upon the earth, and from that soil bloomed a flower, red as blood and soft as grief. He named it Hyacinth, so that the world would remember beauty that dies too young, and love that never fades. The petals bore the markings Ai, a cry of mourning echoing the god's lament. Ai, alas. And so Apollo learned what no prophecy could teach, that love is not something to possess, nor something to perfect. It is a mirror, fragile, painful, divine, in which even a god sees his own imperfection. From Daphne he learned that love cannot be forced. From Hyacinthus he learned that love cannot be kept. And from both he understood that light, no matter how pure, cannot exist without the shadow of loss. The poets say that after Hyacinthus's death, Apollo's music changed again. It grew softer, heavier with emotion, no longer seeking to dominate, but to understand. He no longer played to command harmony, he played to console it. For every note that left his lyre was now a prayer, not for victory, but for mercy. Even gods, it seemed, must learn that the most beautiful melodies are born from pain and from the ashes of loss. Apollo's light became not just illumination, but compassion. The light that warms, not burns. The truth that heals, not condemns. When Apollo claimed Delphi, he did not build a fortress of stone. He built a sanctuary of silence, the kind of silence that listens. At the heart of Mount Parnassus, where the wind whispered secrets through the cliffs and steam rose from the earth like breath, there stood a simple temple. Nothing grand, nothing golden. And yet, it became the center of the world. For beneath its floors the serpent Python lay buried, and from its tomb vapors rose, the sacred breath of prophecy. There, seated upon a tripod of bronze, inhaling the divine fumes of the earth, was Pythia, the oracle of Apollo, the voice of the god. She was not a queen, nor a priestess of power. She was a woman chosen for her purity of heart, her ability to lose herself in divine madness. When she spoke, her words came not from reason, but from something deeper, from the space between worlds, where truth is neither clear nor kind. Kings, generals, and philosophers journeyed across continents to hear her voice. Croesus of Lydia, the richest man in the world, once asked if he should go to war. Pythia replied, "If you cross the river, a great empire will fall." He rejoiced, believing it meant victory. He crossed the river, and his own empire was destroyed. The wisdom of Apollo was never direct. He did not give answers, he gave mirrors. For the god of light knew that knowledge, when handed freely, blinds. True understanding must be earned, uncovered, not gifted. Thus, every prophecy was a paradox, every truth wrapped in shadow. On the temple's entrance were carved 3 words in Greek, "Know thyself," know thyself. It was not a command, it was a warning. To know oneself is to see both the divine and the monstrous within, to recognize your limits, your flaws, your fleeting place in the tapestry of fate. For Apollo, prophecy was not about predicting the future. It was about illuminating the soul. To know one's destiny was to confront one's truth. Inside the temple, when the air was heavy and the sun burned outside, Pythia would rock gently as she entered her trance. Her voice would tremble, sometimes in riddles, sometimes in screams. Around her, the priests of Apollo would listen, interpret, translate. Yet even they understood. The meaning was never fixed. The message depended on the heart that received it. One man would hear warning, another, permission. One would find salvation, another, ruin. For the oracle did not shape fate, she only revealed it. And Apollo? He watched unseen, his light falling through the temple's columns like threads of gold touching the smoke that rose from the earth. He did not speak directly to mortals. He did not interfere. He only shone and let them see what they wished to see. That was his gift and his cruelty. For the truth, like sunlight, reveals but also burns. Those who sought the oracle often left enlightened or destroyed. For what is truth, if not a kind of fire? The philosophers later said that Apollo's light was not just physical, it was intellectual illumination, the light of reason, of discovery, of the mind awakening. But they also warned, the same light that guides can blind those who stare too long. To know too much is to lose the comfort of ignorance. Thus, Delphi became not only the navel of the world, but its conscience. It was where humanity came to face itself, stripped of illusion, of ambition, of the lies that protect the heart. Every pilgrim left behind gold, but carried away a heavier burden, self-awareness. For in Apollo's temple, the greatest revelation was not of gods or destiny, but of human limitation. No prophecy could outshine the truth within one's own reflection. And that was Apollo's greatest paradox. He was the god of light, yet his wisdom lived in shadow. He revealed the path, but never walked it for anyone. To know thyself was to step into the brilliance of Apollo's gaze and discover that enlightenment and torment are twins, that the price of clarity is solitude, and that sometimes not all truths are meant to be known. Still, humankind returned, generation after generation, drawn to Delphi as moths to a flame, because deep down, even through fear and ruin, there is something irresistible about truth. It hurts, it humbles, it transforms. And in that transformation, Apollo found his purpose fulfilled. For light is not mercy, it is revelation. And revelation, though cruel, is the beginning of wisdom. Time passed, empires rose and fell, and the temples of Delphi crumbled into dust. But Apollo's light, that golden thread of reason and harmony, never faded. It did not belong to marble or myth, it belonged to the mind. For even when men stopped believing in gods, they still sought his light, the kind that does not shine in the sky, but within. The Greeks once said that the world stands balanced between two forces, Apollo and Dionysus, reason and ecstasy, structure and chaos, light and fire. One creates form, the other destroys it. And between them lies the human soul, torn between order and desire. Apollo was not the sun alone. He was the geometry of the universe, the rhythm of breath, the measure that keeps madness from swallowing the world. Dionysus was the opposite, the intoxication of life, the wild pulse that defies boundaries. To the Greeks, both were divine, both essential. But where Dionysus revealed truth through abandon, Apollo revealed it through control. He was the clarity that follows the storm, the stillness after revelation. In art and philosophy, Apollo's legacy endured long after his temples fell silent. Sculptors carved his face into marble, serene and perfect, the ideal of symmetry. Poets invoked his name before they wrote, seeking the calm of his muse. And philosophers, from Plato to Nietzsche, wrestled with his duality. Plato called Apollo the light of truth, the reason that orders the soul. In his dialogues, the philosopher imagined the mind as a cave, where men mistake shadows for reality. To leave the cave, to see the light, was to become like Apollo, to know. But even Plato warned, the sun blinds those unprepared for it. Centuries later, Nietzsche saw in Apollo something different, not only the god of logic, but of illusion. He wrote that Apollo gave man the gift of form so that he could bear the chaos of existence. For without beauty, truth would be unbearable. Without structure, the soul would drown in Dionysian frenzy. In Nietzsche's eyes, civilization itself was born from their dance. Apollo's restraint, Dionysus's passion. Order and chaos forever entwined. Through every age, Apollo's light transformed, no longer a god of Olympus, but a symbol of the human condition. When artists painted, they sought his balance. When scientists questioned, they sought his logic. When philosophers doubted, they sought his clarity. He became the archetype of consciousness, the awareness that shapes thought, art, and morality. But even Apollo's light carries shadow. For reason, when worshipped blindly, becomes tyranny. When man seeks to explain all things, he risks losing wonder, the mystery that Dionysus keeps alive. Thus, the lesson endures. Light without darkness is sterile. Knowledge without feeling is hollow. Apollo's perfection must always be tempered by humanity, or else it burns instead of illuminates. And yet, there's beauty in that tension, because between the order of Apollo and the chaos of Dionysus lies balance, the fragile harmony that defines existence. We are not gods, but we are both their children. Our reason builds worlds, our passion gives them meaning. And when these two forces meet, when discipline shapes desire, when beauty marries truth, that is where the divine truly lives. In this, Apollo is eternal. He is not the god of the sun we see, but the sun we carry within, the one that rises each time we choose clarity over confusion, creation over destruction, compassion over pride. Every act of understanding, every moment of art, every word of forgiveness, that is Apollo's light still shining. As long as man seeks truth, Apollo breathes. As long as the mind questions and the heart feels, his song continues. The melody that binds the cosmos, the rhythm that keeps us human. In the silence of the ruins at Delphi, if one listens closely, perhaps the wind still carries his voice. Not a command, but an invitation. Know yourself, seek balance, and remember, light is not what destroys the dark, it is what allows you to see within it. The sun sets, but Apollo's light does not fade. It lingers in the music that heals, in the truth that awakens, in the beauty that reminds mankind who they are. He was never just the god of the sky, but of the spirit. The clarity that emerges after darkness, the harmony that binds chaos into meaning. And as his light falls gently over the ruins of Delphi, it touches not the stones, but the souls that still seek understanding. For every question, every dream, every act of creation is a whisper of his song, a note in the endless symphony of existence. But beyond Apollo's radiance lies another god, one who rules where light cannot reach. In the next tale, we descend once more into the shadows of power and silence, into the realm of Hades, lord of the underworld.